Well, okay, aside from the part that the speaker cloth is completely ruined, it's really not salvageable anymore. There's another problem. The cloth was glued on top of a piece of cardboard, which you see here. And as you can see, if I take a pointer, uh, here particularly, you see damage of glue that was done to the cardboard when they glued it on to the cabinet. And well, a part of the cardboard peeled away, so which isn't very good. Also, you'll notice on this part, on this side of the cardboard, there are also spots of glue, and there the glue is still on the cardboard. I suspect they used a kind of hot glue to glue it to the cabinet, and well, the hot glue didn't really work that well. Now, how they managed to glue the actual speaker cloth to the cardboard, I don't know. They might have used a kind of liquid glue which they smeared onto the front of the cardboard, and then they probably tensioned the cloth over the cardboard and then left it between two pressure plates to dry. Now, unfortunately for me, the cloth has very little in the sense of leftover on the back. One of the tricks I know some restorers use is that they detach the leftover edges of the speaker cloth, then resettle the speaker cloth lower or higher, and then try to blot out the damaged bit of the cloth. Unfortunately for me, that trick won't work. I do have a little bit of leftover here, but it's on the wrong side. Had it been on the top side, then it might have worked out. Also, I'm not confident that I could release the speaker cloth from the cardboard, because it's probably, like I said, being glued on to the cardboard, and if I need to use heat or chemicals to release it from the cardboard, it will either ruin the cardboard or ruin the speaker cloth, or both. So, unfortunately, perhaps I will have to resort to yet another option, which is that I'll just pick a piece of thick cardboard, like this is. I guess it's about 3 or 4 millimeter thick, and cut it exactly in the right shape for use on the cabinet. And once I cut out the cardboard in the same shape, and I also cut out a hole for the speaker, then I will recoat the new cardboard with the new cloth I ordered for the radio. Now, I know this is a bit sensitive for most of you. Some of you would desperately try to get exactly the same cloth. But I decided that finding the exact same cloth would be nigh impossible. So I decided on ordering a cloth which has a very nice Art Deco pattern printed onto it. It's golden yellow in color, and it has tiny little flecks of red and green and gold woven, as it were, into the pattern. Well, it's not actually woven, it's rather printed, but it's really nice pattern. The only thing I don't know yet is whether I want to apply this pattern in a vertical way, so in the direction you're seeing right now, or in a horizontal fashion like this. I'm getting ready to cut the front panel of the Aristona, and well, actually, as you can see, I cut it out in exactly the same shape as the original panel, which I have lying around somewhere. Here it is. So, as you can see, the shape of the cutout is exactly the same. Now, you might wonder why I cut exactly the same panel as the original. Well, there are perhaps a couple of reasons. First of all, I think I said in another episode that removing the original speaker cloth from the original front panel would be too hard to do. It would damage the cloth, and it would certainly damage the cardboard. Well, maybe it's not cardboard, but a kind of masonite. In any case, removing the cloth would be too damaging, and I would spend way too much time and energy trying to remove it from the original board. So I did the next best thing, which is to cut a new panel from a new piece of masonite. I bought reasonably cheaply masonite. I drew the exact same contour of the original on the new masonite, and using quite a bit of force and a lot of time, I managed to cut it out from the masonite in the exact right shape. I used a utility knife, something like this, yeah, to cut it out. So, if you look carefully at the original, there is one big hole in the masonite for the speaker. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to cut the same hole in the new masonite. I'm using a manual bandsaw to cut the profile of the speaker out of the masonite. And as you can see, it's reasonably slow going, but it's reasonably accurate and not too hard. It's actually easier than trying to cut it with a utility knife. So I'm going to do that all around the drawing, and then when I'm done, I'm going to continue with gluing the cloth on top of it. And there you go. I cut the hole, and as you can see, it's reasonably accurate. Okay, I wouldn't say it's as accurate as if it would have been machined, but all things considered, it's not too bad. And I used this figure saw, or a manual bandsaw, I suppose you could call it. It works, but don't expect lightning quick results from it. You still need quite a bit of patience. to cut with it. Nonetheless, since I do not have anything better as an alternative, the bandsaw or the figure saw did its job. So now I'm just going to finish up or touch up the edges of the hole just a little bit, and then we move on to fixing the cloth. If you want to finish off or to give something a sharp edge or remove burrs or anything, I'd recommend that you buy yourself a surgical knife like this. It's extremely sharp, and it allows you, at least this particular knife, allows you to cut in very sharp angles. Now, it's so sharp that you barely need to touch something and you already cut off slices of the material. Yeah. Now, if you decide to buy yourself a surgical knife, there is one thing you must remember. That is, if you cut with this, always cut away from you. Because remember, this is so sharp it can slice off your finger. Clean off. Okay? So be careful. These knives are no toys. But if you use them correctly, you can cut through all sorts of materials and leave very sharp edges and all that. So it's really a wonderful tool to finish off edges very precisely by allowing you to slice off tiny little slivers and nothing more. So yeah, if you really intend to do some very tiny, precise work, buy yourself a surgical knife like this. If you're going to cut cloth, the best thing to do, of course, is to measure out a piece which has approximately the right size. Then you put down the profile which needs to be cut out, and you take a regular pencil like this. This is pencil of hardness HB. Yeah, and what you do is you give it a rather blunt end, and then you draw around the profile you want to cut. Well, they'll be starting at 10:30 here on BBC One. The viewers in Northern Ireland. You draw the profile onto the cloth. Now, mind you, the intention, of course, is not to cut the cloth exactly where the profile ends. Yeah. So the reason why I draw the profile onto the cloth is to have a reference point for making the final cut through the cloth. Yeah. John Cantley, a freelance photographer and journalist, a man who went to dangerous places to tell the world there you are, where I made the whole contour, or I drew the whole contour of the new masonite front plate onto the cloth. Okay, so I don't know if you can see it, it's rather faint, but if you take a close look at the cloth, I think you can see the line I drew onto the cloth. Yeah, it's rather faint, but I think you can see it. And in any case, what I really want to say is, now that I have the contour of the profile, this profile, onto the cloth, I know how much of an edge I need to cut around it. Because you see, we're going to wrap the cloth around this profile. So you need an edge of at least, say, 1 centimeter, centimeter and a half to wrap it around on the other side. Mainly for solidity purposes, because if you take a good look at the original one, hang on, let me take the original one. So this is the original front panel, and as you can see, well, they didn't do a very accurate job of it, but they did cut a little bit of extra cloth to wrap it around the front plate. Now it's just for grip purposes, so that the cloth can't move about when it's glued, and it's also to tension up the cloth, obviously, and it's also to hide the irregular cut in the cloth, because you can never really cut cloth at an extremely sharp edge, at least not if you use shears like this. Yeah, so with shears like this you can never make a very straight cut. So you need to hide the cut behind the panel by folding it back like this. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to use contact glue in a spray can to coat the front of the masonite with a layer, an even layer of glue all over its surface. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the fabric. I'm going to spray all over the fabric a layer of this contact glue. Now the name should already warn you. This is contact glue. It means that you get at maximum about 20 seconds to set the fabric onto the front of the masonite. So the way you do it is that you spray an even coating all over the masonite, and you do the same thing immediately over the fabric. And after you have done that, you wait for, say, or I would estimate about a minute, maybe 2 minutes, depending how much glue you sprayed. So don't be too liberal, okay, with the glue, because otherwise you will make the glue ooze through the fabric, and that's obviously something we don't want. Now once you apply the fabric onto the masonite, you spread it evenly in both directions with your hands. Don't put too much tension on it, because otherwise you will deform the pattern on the cloth, which is something you definitely don't want. Now, technically speaking, you should iron the cloth first, so that there are no wrinkles in it or anything. But this is reasonably wrinkle free, so I don't think that will create a problem. Also, you should keep on rubbing it gently once you attached it to the board, until you feel that the glue is finally catching hold. When the glue has finally caught on, then you need to leave it like it is for about an hour or so for the glue to completely dry. When that is done, you need to reverse the whole board and once it's completely reversed, you need to do the edges. I'm getting ready to give the tuning dial backing a ground layer, you know, with a primer, and I sanded it as well as I could without trying to damage too much the cabinet. I think that's okay. I don't think I damaged it in any sort of way. So, and I took the pains to really close up every crack and hole and any possibility of avoiding paint to leak through either to the back or to the front of the radio. Now, obviously, I'm also going to make a shroud of newspaper all around the cabinet to prevent any possible spillover of paint onto the cabinet surface, that surface that I so painstakingly cleaned up and polished. Now, you might think I overdid it by covering up practically the whole cabinet with newspaper, but let's face it, spray paint has the nasty property of invading any crack or opening you left. So I took no half measures and I built a shroud really completely around the radio, or well, I should say the cabinet. And you know, putting that much bit effort more into covering it up completely will avoid any mishaps. Now, just in case you're wondering, yes, I am going to paint the back of the dial plate white. Well, I mean the backlight of the dial plate. I played around with the idea of painting it maybe in a silver color or even a golden color, but I think in this case, since the engineers all those years ago decided that white was the best as a backlight, I think I'll stick to their decision and I'll just paint it white once more. But it'll be a clear a satin gloss white. But first I must paint a primer, and I'm just going to use a normal primer, which is light gray and matte. And there you go, the layer of primer all painted down. Now it's just a matter of waiting until it's completely dry, and then we'll give it a shiny new white layer of lacquer. And that's it. I'm not going to paint anything else either inside or outside of the cabinet. I'm just going to leave it as it is. I think it's more than enough, and well, anyway, I want to preserve, at least on the inside, the original paint. It'll be less shiny, but what the heck. I mean, it's all about making the radio functional again and clean. So that's it.